I mean, I think that the first thing that comes to mind is liturgy and theology, right? So the idea that like most of us never believed in a big old man in the sky, and yet because men were either writing the Hebrew, beautiful poetry, or writing the transliterations, they didn't really see that they were perpetuating that, even if you drill down and it's like, well, it's not what we believe, And so now I think in so many different prayer books and translations, there's such a much more sensitivity to the language of theology, whether it's explicitly Shekhinah and feminine presence, or whether it's just taking gender out of that God image and talking more on an energetic spiritual level. I think that's been a really important contribution, and I still see that people who didn't grow up with those types of translations still have like some embedded masculine God language that they rebel against, but they don't even have the language to articulate that, we were kind of given this, and there all are alternatives, but to rewrite that script is harder. So I think that I see fewer children sort of saying things like Lord and He, like it's just not as much in the culture when we talk about prayer and theology. So I think that's one big contribution. And also I just think the pastoral approach, right? To be humanized, to be I, thou, to sort of allow all sides of ourselves to be present in those interactions, and to acknowledge that this is hard and holy work, and we have lives and kids and bodies and things that need to happen as well. I think it's helped Jews understand that this is a profession, not this is not about being the Pope and being totally removed from society. And so I think that's been normalizing. On the other hand, we have a pipeline issue where it's harder and harder to convince people to become rabbis. So I don't know where that fits into the equation.
I can also add, in thinking about speaking with you, I was reflecting back to the time in my life when I was serving the Coastside Jewish community. And as I mentioned, I was having babies and nursing. And I think the first sermon I ever had to write was for High Holidays. It was Coastside's first High Holidays. And I wanted to speak about my mother, whose name is Hannah, and that's the Haftorah that we read on Rosh Hashanah. And if you look at the story of Hannah in the Torah, it's the Haftorah. I mean, and the related story of Sarah and Hagar, just from a woman's perspective, we come with a very different interpretation. And so I ended up writing an article that's in a book called The Women's Haftorah Commentary about focusing on breastfeeding and the fact that Hannah only gave up her child Samuel to be dedicated in the temple after she'd weaned him, and that Sarah they had a big feast after she weaned Yitzchak. And in this day and age, we don't do feasts anymore. We don't celebrate weaning. We celebrate in the more traditional world the boy's first haircut. We celebrate the bris. It's a different kind of cutting than the independence that comes from a weaning. So I would just and because of that, as describing what Laurie was talking about, there's actually all kinds of beautiful imagery from our Torah about God as a nursing mother. And there's actually ancient Near Eastern goddesses that were seen as kind of overflowing with this nourishment, that, the divine wellspring that provided manna for all of us. So it's just, it completely shifts the way that we look at some of these biblical stories if you're looking at them from a woman's perspective. And I think we have we have to add like a whole other half of the world's view to our tradition and recover those stories.
Thank you for that. I think in some of the interviews I watched from women rabbis, one theme that seemed to come out was that women tend to be more relational. And I think that changed the model of what, like you were saying, Rabbi Laurie, of the model of what a rabbi is expected to be. Any other questions from anyone here or on Zoom?
What do you mean by relational?
Oh, what do I mean by relational? I think maybe in the old days it was more like the sage on the stage, giving the sermon to all the people. But when women came into the rabbinate, there was more of a more interpersonal style of just being with people, more pastoral, I guess you might say, rather than there was more of a distance in the old model. Does that make sense? Any other questions? We've got just really some great leaders here with us. Rachel, please go ahead.
This isn't really a question, but just a comment following on what you just said was witness Serena's children and their disruption during her time at Coastside Jewish Community. I mean, we loved that disruption. We loved their voices. We loved seeing them around. So but yes, I can't really imagine a male rabbi with his kids there giving their own prayers. It's a very different sensibility.
Well, now Ted sometimes had Orly interrupting stuff up there.
Oh, that's true. There was Orly. Yeah,
it could happen.
And I actually, when I was a rabbi in Cincinnati and my kids were infants, I had to stop in the middle of the service to change a stinky diaper. So my congregants were very forgiving then. Rabbi Laurie.
I have a question.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Well, when I was moving to Israel, and so I could no longer serve the coast side, I was in the playground with my kids, and Jo Singer was in the playground with her kids. They were in the same nursery school together. And I said, hey, you're studying to be a rabbi. There's this great congregation on the coast that's going to be meeting a student rabbi. Would you be interested? And I'll just say candidly, at the time, Jose was still a woman. And so I think your congregation has had a really unique experience of being with a clergy person as they transitioned. And I'm curious what that was like for you as a community.
I think Josh handled it with openness and just it was so forthright. It didn't sit well with all of our members, but in general, I don't know. It just like our son was bar mitzvahed here as Jost went through that process, and to him it was like, what's the big deal? And maybe that's a generational thing because his friends, he's 30 now, so this was 16 years ago when he got bar mitzvahed, but all his friends were like, gender, schmender, nobody cares. So there's a generational shift, but I think for him being exposed to that in his, the day he got bar mitzvah is the last time he went to services, of course, but his experience to that point, I think the values of that have had a lasting impact on him, and Jose was a big part of that.
I think normalizing these stories and telling them is so important. I'm thinking, Serena, of the book Ima on the Bima, which truly was seen as revolutionary and like naming
Ima
something that was
Mother,
new and strange, at the time. And now I look at that book and, it's like not only just part of our world, but it feels like, well, why is that a big deal? But it was, right? And so, in Joseph's story and our stories, like this idea of, and thank you, Moshe, for lifting it up and, giving a chance for people to think about who are the humans who are in these leadership roles. I've always appreciated about Judaism that our role models are not perfect. Moses has issues. Abraham has issues. Everybody has issues, and where it's not, the perfect saint, right? That's for me, one of the differences between Jesus as a role model, because there's a perfection that none of the rest of us can achieve. And so to say, we're all on this life journey, we're all on a Jewish journey, like we might be tired and cranky and changing a stinky diaper, and we might be changing our gender, there's all different versions. And that allows the rest of the community to show up in our own authentic way too. And I think that's also just allowing family to be part of clergy and to be part of community, in a different way.
So true. Hey, Rabbi Laurie, before we end, I want you to, if you could share with us what you do now.
Sure.
And how our people can get to know you, and maybe we might run into you or collaborate with you at some point in the future.
Absolutely. So, I served in Colamet in Palo Alto, where Serena was a congregant, and where her kids were in my programs and Madrithim, and so there's a connection there too. I was there for 7 years. I was in the South Bay for 6 years, where I started doing a lot of different kinds of projects, from Jewish yoga to family education to coaching preschool teachers, leading women's retreats, a whole bunch of stuff. And less than a year and a half ago, I was recruited to come up to PJCC as our Chief Jewish Experience Officer, succeeding Levi Darby, who you might know, who was here for 10 years, who I actually interned with at Kol Shofar in Marin. So we're all connected. That's a good message. All the rabbis are connected. He retired a full year, a little more before I came, but my role is to enhance Jewish life in San Mateo County, both within and beyond the walls of the PJCC. So we're in Foster City, you might know, just over 92 from the coast. I'm tasked with creating programs and relationships and paradigms for staff, community members, Jewish community members, fitness center members, local clergy, local civic leaders, anybody who is on a Jewish journey of some kind, as an ally, a friend, or a family member. And so I'm doing a lot of programming and a lot of also just education, relationship building, helping us all to think about, what's the bottom line? What's the essence, the ikar of this Torah? We are launching a year of chesed, of loving kindness. And I was really struck yesterday when I was teaching at our staff development day, what is kindness? And there's a line from Eshet Chayil, a woman of valor, which is sometimes said on Friday nights, but it's also sort of a love poem to the feminine side of God, or Lady Wisdom, or Shekhinah. And there's this idea that a Torah of Chesed, Torah Chesed, is on her tongue. And so it came to me that I just felt very passionate about communicating to our staff, who is about 2/3 at least not Jewish, that the way Judaism looks at itself is of a Torah of Chesed, that we are a tradition of loving kindness, an ethic of kindness. We want to increase behaviors of kindness in the world, and that's what the path to Tikkun Olam. So I'm really trying to practice finding that essence and finding language to communicate it out, and also create a safe and vibrant space for Jews to explore their journey, whatever that means. And so we have classes, we have holiday programs, we have the roundtable coming up soon, which we're all going to be speaking in Chavurah, in study together about Chesed. And it's really important to me to make sure that co-side is represented. I will take credit for inviting Moshe into the rabbinic fold to make sure that you're all represented at our North Peninsula Jewish leadership meetings, etc., and co-sponsoring events. And we've done a few events on the coast, and we're really the only Jewish community center in San Mateo County. We believe there are 37,000 Jews in the county, at all different points on our Jewish journeys. And I'm here for you, for ideas, for resources, connecting people to each other, all generations. So if you're not yet on our mailing list, this is a good week to do so, because on Friday or on Sunday, our monthly newsletter will go out. So I'd love to make sure that you know that we see you as part of our county of the Jewish community.
Great. Thank you so much. I think it's important that CJC has a strong relationship with PJCC now and in the years to come. So thank you both for being our guests tonight. And it's really great to hear your personal stories and really probably a broader story about women and the Rabbinate. I mean, this was really a great way to learn about that and to experience that from your firsthand experience. So
Thank you so
thanks
much.
all. And everybody else, we'll see you next week when we'll have Rabbi Jane Littman with us.
Nice.
So be well.
Wonderful
Stay
to
in
meet
touch.
you all. Rachel, fantastic to see you.
Thank you.
Take good care, everyone.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.